I'm Harvey Tuck, host of Franchising Brand Stories.
And I'm Pip Wilkins, CEO at the British Franchise Association.
And welcome to Franchising Brand Stories. This is the
Thank you
show.
very much.
This is a show where we get under the hat of some of the top brands in the UK and in the world. And we have no exception today. In fact, it's a huge honor today. I'm sure all of you recognize who we have on the show today. But the brand story we're going to hear today is the BFA with the wonderful Pip Wilkins. But before I hand things over to Pip, I'd just like to tell you a little bit about the BFA. Since 1977, the British Franchising Association, the BFA, has become by far the largest and most influential trade association for franchising in the UK. Leading the charge and influencing change in UK franchising, Pip and her team have created a platform to promote their members' success, share their expertise, and highlight their stories. Pip's own journey in franchising is truly inspirational and represents everything that franchising has to offer. So Pip, I'd like to start, if I can, with chapter one. It's always a good place to start, chapter one. So I'd just like to ask you, first of all, welcome to Franchising Brand Stories. And perhaps you could tell us what the BFA is and what it is you do.
Fantastic. Thank you very much for having me. So the BFA, I think you pretty much hit the nail on the head with what you said. We are the self-regulatory body for UK franchising. So we've been doing it for more than 40 years. And our ultimate goal, as you said, is all about, for me, the promotion, the protection and the education of franchising in the UK market. So our overall vision is to be the hub for UK franchising, and our mission is all about providing an educational space for people to get together and accreditations that are governed by the BFA's high standards and ethics in the UK market.
Fantastic. A great introduction to a wonderful brand that supports us all. I'd also like to begin by asking you, where are you at right now in terms of sort of membership and size, and what does the BFA look like today?
Okay, so we are, and you touched on it, we are probably one of the biggest associations in the world, not just in the UK and Europe. At the moment, we represent about a third of UK franchisors. So we have about 350 franchisors in membership. Overall, there are just over 900 brands in the UK market at the moment, although those stats will update very soon when we launch our survey. In addition to franchisors, we have our advisor and supplier membership, and representation there is about 100 brands. And then more recently, we've got really proactive with franchisee membership. And what we didn't want to do is just sign every franchisee of a member up to franchisee membership. We went down the route of true engagement. So each franchisee has said, I want to join the BFA and I want to be a part of it. And we have literally just shy of 2,000 franchisees represented as well. So we're not a small business anymore. We're quite big.
No, absolutely not. That's fantastic. Thank you so much. That's a lovely introduction so that people can really understand what the BFA is, and we're of course going to go back to the beginning fairly soon. But before we do that, if you have just joined us, we are talking to the wonderful Pip Wilkins of the BFA. And we're about to enter the middle section of the episode, where we really like to try and encourage people, if they can, and if they've got any questions, to ask those, and we'll bring those into the show and see what comes up. Very quickly before we get into that, I'd like to welcome AdSmart by Sky, our lovely sponsor for season 2. So welcome to Franchising Brand Stories, and it's lovely to have you with us. Let's have a little look. We're going to start now chapter 2, which is the main part of the show. We've got a fair few people here, which is great to have. Oh, look at that. That's a good one.
I like it when people say they want to join before I ask.
That's it. Yeah, precisely. Pip, can you tell us why the BFA was formed originally? What was the sort of the history and the reason? You know, if we could take you back in time now, right to the beginning when I was only 3.
You're only 3. I was -2. So the BFA was formed before I was born. So back in 1977, in essence, basically because there weren't any standards for UK franchising. So a small group of franchisors, 8 founder franchisors, got together because they wanted to differentiate themselves in the marketplace, to set themselves up as a brand that was trading ethically. Lots of things were calling themselves franchising. And so the BFA was formed to really promote and showcase ethics, standards, and business format franchising in the UK market. Our 8 founder members, I'm really pleased to say, we still have 3 of them on board. So brands from Dino Rod, Wimpy, and Service Master, through to kind of KFC, Pronto Print, Holiday Inn. So we had quite a lot of brands at that stage that just really wanted to showcase themselves. We've been formed and basically since then have continued to develop those standards for franchising, making sure that we're promoting what best practice looks like and helping brands to get the right advice at the right time.
Oh, that's great, and such an important thing to do at that early stage. You know, in the UK, when we're not subject to so much regulation, it's important to have a body that protects everybody within the industry and tries to set some standards that aim people towards ethical franchising. Really, really important, and a great story at the beginnings of that and how it all started. And it's lovely to hear that some of those people are still with you. So that's really
still
great.
With us and still going strong.
Absolutely. And very quickly, we've got a few people here. I'm going to very quickly recognize the fact that we got Natalie, we got Simon, Tim, Johnny Joseph from Los Angeles. We've also got Julie Waits here. So it's great to have everybody here. If you've got any questions, please let us know. We're looking forward to hearing your thoughts on the BFA. And if you've got anything that you would like to ask Pip, please put a question in the comments. So your own personal experience and career with the BFA, Pip, how did your journey begin with the BFA? How did you get to be the head honcho, the big cheese?
So in essence, I fell across franchising, I think like most people do. You know, it wasn't something I was aware of. My career at the BFA, and a lot of people won't realize how long I've been there, is 25 years. I celebrate next June. So next month. It was an accident. I wanted to work in an office. I had worked a bit in the license trade. I'd been a lifeguard. I was 19 and didn't really know what I wanted to be when I grew up. And I started looking for different jobs in a local newspaper, and there was an advert for the British Franchise Association. The man that recruited me and is responsible for what I've subjected the industry to is actually Simon. So Simon Wise was our business services manager at the time, and the role that I went for was a business services assistant role. So he recruited me. I spent a couple of years in a business services role. I've done events, client services, business development, operations, head of operations. And in 2016, when my predecessor retired, I got the role as the CEO. So it's been a long and happy career with the BFA, and one that I think, you know, once we talk about it all the time, once you get into franchising, you kind of get that bug for it and you never really leave. So
it's got a real sense of community. I've found, you know, I don't think there's any industry that I've felt so welcome in so quickly as franchising. Yeah. And I think every single person, and I've been lucky enough to talk to so many wonderful people, and almost every person has said the same thing, that they kind of fell into it by accident, or, you know, it just so happened that it went that particular way. But like you say, once they do, there's a real love of the industry, a real passion. And, you know, it's fantastic to hear that. Let's have a quick look here. We've got a question that's come in from the ever wise Simon Wise. And what's Simon got to say? So Simon's put, what criteria do franchisors need to satisfy in order to become members? Yeah, that's a great question, Simon. Is there I appreciate it's probably quite a lengthy process, but
I can answer it for you in simple terms. For us, we're looking for businesses that are viable, franchisable, ethical, and disclosed. In a nutshell, if you've got a business that you're that's already set up as a franchise, or one that is starting out on its franchising journey, and you've got all of the bits that you need to franchise, then you can talk to us. We have different categories of membership. And the principal thing about the BFA, we're not a tick box, computer says no, you can't join. We really want to work with brands on a partnership approach. The biggest thing for us is about influencing change and helping businesses achieve the standards and the bar that we set. So we're looking at brands, we're looking at the history that they've got in it, but the things that we explore is their operational best practices, their finances, their marketing materials, their franchise agreement, to really make sure that kind of stacks up to our code of ethics. And we work really closely with the European Franchise Federation. So it's the European Code of Ethics that is what we as an association and all the associations around Europe work to. But for us, it's making sure that people understand the things that they need to change. And some people, if they've worked with a really good franchise consultant and they've worked with a BFA accredited lawyer, once they come to us, there is very little that we need to change. And that's a really lovely place to be in. But some people have taken bad advice in the past. And from our perspective, then what we want to do is help them make the changes that they need, signpost them to the right advice and the right people that can kind of put them on the right track. But that doesn't have to be really expensive. We've got some great advisors that sit on our list that will work with brands in a way that they need to, that's affordable, and gets them, like I said, on the right track.
Well, that's great. I mean, it's really good because if you're starting out as an entrepreneur looking to franchise your particular business, or if you've just started down that road, you can either come with all of the right advice first and just kind of put that into a nice formula and get accredited, or you can sort of use it to help you out if you've got yourself in a bit of a rut as a franchisor and you really want to sort of straighten things out, but you've got excellent and good intentions. Then it's a great way to sort of see what areas you could do with a little bit of help and a little bit of improving on.
And because, like you said, you mentioned the community element, there are other franchisors that will sit down with you over a cup of coffee and say, this is where I went wrong. These are the things you need to consider. These are the places that we've gone and recruited successfully. So people are sharing know-how and best practice. And our job is to facilitate that, is to make sure that we're getting those franchisors together and giving opportunities for established brands to spend time with new brands, and really get that kind of conversation going, and get people the right advice. That's our key principle.
Yeah, no, that's great. And I love the sharing of the know-how as well. And I've definitely found as an industry that people are open to sharing things, with their peers and even with their competitors in a way, and I think that's a wonderful place to be, because then as an industry, we grow and nurture each other and become stronger as an industry. So I think that's excellent. Let's have a look. We've got a few other questions come in here. So let's have a look at something that Julie's put here. What are the biggest challenges in the sector currently, in Pip's view? I mean, there's always lots of challenges, isn't there? But can you name one that that's coming up that we're dealing with well as a community?
100%. One of the biggest challenges, we've just done a survey of our members, and it was a question: what's your biggest challenge at the moment? And by far and above, it's always the same. It's recruitment. It's finding franchisees. So from a BFA perspective, and I've just saw a question pop into the chat that I can address at the same time. The most important thing we can do as the BFA is the promotion of franchising to a wider community. It's the one thing that our members say they want us to do more of. So that's us influencing conversations. It's lobbying at government level. It's being able to put franchising on the business agenda in areas that people don't necessarily and might not be looking for franchising. But if we do our bit, not just as the BFA, but as an industry sector, to talk more about franchising and the benefits of it. It's a by far safer route into business than it is doing it as an independent. Our survey has shown that for 20 years, the failure rate in franchising has been less than 20%. Less than 5%. From a commercial failure perspective. So it's a safe route into business. When you flip that on its head and look at non-franchise startup businesses, a lot of those, more than 50%, will fail in their first 5 years. So it's a safer way of doing it. And what we need to do is get some of those messages further afield so that more people know that franchising is an option, and an option for them to get into business for themselves. But, the old age adage that they're not by themselves. They have the backup and support of the organization behind them. But most importantly, they have the backup and support of franchising behind them. We are a franchise family, and everyone in franchising collaborates, shares best practice, and supports one another. It's a no-brainer.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I think you're right when you said there about not being by yourself as well. An entrepreneur and starting your own business is a lonely place sometimes, and quite a scary place. And you've got to make all of these decisions on your own. But you become part of a good franchise family. You've got so much support around you, like you rightly said, the community at large, the franchisor, other franchisees. So you get the benefit of having your own business, but with this network of support and structure in place. It's
and one of the things we're seeing more and more of with the launch, and I said, we've got 2,000 franchisees now. We had our first franchisee forum in the second quarter, it was around April time. And that was, 60, 70 franchisees from different networks getting together. And it's a really positive environment because it can be a lonely place when you start a business, as you said, and you start a franchise and you can talk to all these franchisees that are in the same business as you. But it's really lovely to talk to people in the same region as you, in the same town as you, in different sectors, because you have different challenges. But they're talking about, marketing, social media, HR issues. It's just business issues, but with people that understand what franchising is. So I think franchisee membership for us will be an area that really grows. But, coming back to Julie's question, the issues with recruitment, it's different for each franchisor in terms of whether it's getting leads or converting leads or resales. But there's loads of different things I think that we can do as an association to support that promotion. We will never be a recruitment body ourselves. That's not what the BFA is. We're here to promote standards, and by virtue of belonging, it helps with recruitment. But our job is the promotion to get more people to think, hey, this is a great route for my future.
Yeah, absolutely. You should come on one of these things where you talk about franchising live on a platform. That'd be a good idea.
I know, it's great, isn't it?
It really resonated with me what you said there about adding value by having these conversations, because it's exactly why I do this. And I'm very honored to talk to a lot of people. And by having these conversations and inspiring questions and thought, we're adding value, and we're hoping that people then can make a more considered decision, and take some expert advice. And the BFA is an excellent place to start for that. So it's fantastic. Let's have a little look. We've got a question here from Tim. What's Tim got to say? Let's see. Really interested to understand the role of the BFA in the World Council and how it influences global franchising. What do you make of that one, Pip?
Wow. So the World Franchise Council is a body of associations. So it's where franchisors get together and share know-how and best practice. We, as franchise associations from around the world, do exactly the same thing. So the World Franchise Council meet twice a year. There's 41 different countries from around the world. And the goal is to share know-how and best practice. How are you recruiting members? How are you supporting them? How do you do exhibitions in your country? We have a really thorough legal report. So each country submits a country report and a legal report to every meeting. So we can look at what legislation and changes or legislative impacts are happening in different countries around the world, because it could be something that impacts us. So the role that we have in the World Franchise Council and subsequently also the European Franchise Federation, those are the things that help us know what's going on in the wider world so we can protect franchising in the UK market and make sure that it doesn't become a regulated sector here. It just becomes expensive. When you look at what the associations have to do in America, in Australia, in Canada, because they're in a legislative environment, most of the funds of the association is then spent on advocacy to protect and educate government, because they're looking at franchising as connected enterprises rather than individual businesses. You know, what we can do is invest the BFA subscriptions in services for our members, upskilling from an educational perspective, joint and collaborative promotional campaigns. There's loads of different things that we do far better than other associations, because we can put and switch some of our time away from that regulation environment, because by being around the table at the WFC and the EFF, it gives us the knowledge of what could be coming, and where we might need to then lobby independently in the UK.
That's great. And that's really interesting to hear your thoughts and the BFA's thoughts on regulation. It was a conversation that I had on the franchise show very recently about whether things should be regulated and how the differences between regulated and non-regulated countries. But you've made a really valid point to be able to put that energy, put that time into true support of ethical franchising, rather than perhaps some of the red tape and bureaucracy. So it's,
when you look at regulation, you just have to prepare a disclosure document. We don't say that you don't disclose in the UK. The European Code of Ethics, the self-regulation point is there is a list of the things that a franchisor should disclose when a franchisee's making their decision on franchising. We educate franchisees. It's what we do in the prospect market, is to say to a franchisee, your due diligence is the most important thing that you're going to do. Because first of all, you need to make sure that franchising is the right option for you. Do you fully understand what that means as a concept and how it works? But then more importantly, you've got to find your right match. You wouldn't just, I was going to say hop into bed. That's probably the wrong thing. You wouldn't walk down the aisle with somebody that you hadn't courted, dated, and made sure that they're the right fit. This is, you're going into a 5, sometimes 10-year franchise agreement with somebody, understanding how they work, who's involved in that relationship, how they're going to look after you, what the franchisor is going to do for you. All of that is fundamental to a franchisee's decision. And for us, it's making sure that they do ask these questions, and they don't wake up one morning and go, I didn't know I was going to have to do that every day. Them spending time with franchisees is important. Speaking to franchisees about, how you work in a business. So yeah, there's loads of different things I think that franchisees need to consider. But, our perspective, from a regulation perspective, I think the only people that profit is the lawyers. And I mean that in the nicest possible way to the lawyers. But you would have to create, huge disclosure documents. You have to update them a lot. It becomes expensive for franchisors. The obligation then is just read this, rather than actually what we have here. And it's the reason our failure rate is so good, is because franchisors in the UK are selective. It's not I'll roll up and take on anybody that's got the money. And the big shift change we've seen, or I've seen in the last 20 years, is the fact that franchisees now want to make sure that the brand that they're investing in is aligned to their own personal core values. It's not how much money can I make, and the franchisor isn't how much money are you going to make me. It really is this joint partnership on, are we going to be successful? Are our goals aligned? Because in a lot of franchise businesses, the big difference, the greater, bigger picture, the community support element, all of that comes into whether they're going to be successful in their local area.
Definitely. I love what you said there. No, please go on. And any tangent you like. It's free ranging here. It's the Wild West. But I loved what you said. See, it's live.
Threw my earphone out then.
It's good stuff. I love what you said there about being aligned to values. And it's why we do this show, about telling the stories, because, documents and numbers tell you one thing, but really understanding the person that you're going to be doing business with. And we've often said that, you said there about it being like a relationship, and we've said before on many occasions that it's like a marriage, or it is like a partnership, a relationship, and it's a long-term thing, so really important. Before we've got quite a few more questions here. Before we do get to some of those questions, if you have just joined us today, this is Franchising Brand Stories, and we are talking to the lovely Pip Wilkins from the BFA. We are about halfway through, but if you would like to catch the replay, then please scan the little QR code there, and you can see the replay of this show. So please do that if you have just joined us or if you're watching in the future. So let's have a little look at another question here. We've got quite a few that have come in. Let's have a look. So we've got a question here from a LinkedIn user. I'm not sure who this is. Please let us know who you are. The question is, how might the industries that franchise change over the next 5 to 10 years? We see a lot of representation across QSR, coffee, fitness. What types of industries also add to the breadth of companies that are part of the BFA? That's a great question. I think there are some spaces and gaps for new types of industries. What's your thoughts, Pip?
Well, I actually think that franchising touches most sectors and industries already. So if you look at the diverse range, one of the biggest growth areas we've seen is in the personal services sector. So that's looking at everything from dog walking and grooming, to baby swimming, to children's activities, to domiciliary care. That personal services part of our survey is now massive, and it's been a sector I think that's really boomed. We've seen peaks and troughs. QSR is the one I think that people focus on, and the ones that are mentioned there as well, coffee, fitness, they're the things that you see on the high street. But franchising isn't all about what you see on the high street. It's everything from, Agency Express with, they were our Gold Franchisor of the Year winner that do servicing estate agents with boards. And, there's something I think that touches everyone. You can use franchising all the time in your everyday life without even realizing it. Carpet cleaning, domestic cleaning, commercial cleaning, there is loads of stuff. And I think, we will see more green agenda type things coming forward. So we've seen quite a lot of vegan restaurants and things starting to launch in that space. But it continues to grow in different areas. But personal services has been the area that we've seen the most growth in over the last 3 to 5 years.
Fantastic. No, great answer to that. A question I had is, if you wanted to be a member, and we had somebody here, and do let us know who you are, but we had somebody who wanted to be a member. If you do want to be a member of the BFA, what does that journey look like for either a franchisee or a franchisor or somebody who wants to become a member of the BFA? What's the process look like? What can they expect?
So from a franchisee perspective, a franchisee's franchisor needs to be a member of the BFA before they can join. That's where the standards line comes in from our perspective. But from a franchisor perspective, it starts with a meeting. It starts with a conversation. Our role is to understand our members, what they do, how they do it, when they started it, all of that kind of stuff. So initially you would have a call, either online or a face-to-face meeting with one of our franchise support team. They would come out, understand everything about how you operate as a franchisor in the marketplace. And then we would talk you through our benefit processes, everything that we have on offer, and what you can tap into, but really tailoring that to the brand. There's so many different things that we do. Some members belong principally because of the credibility of the BFA brand and the kudos that gives them when they're out in the marketplace talking to potential franchisees. But then we have people join because they want to be part of our awards programs, our promotional campaigns, because they want to be a part of the conference, the awards programs and the event side of things that we do. So everyone's motivation and driver for joining is different, but the journey for us is the same. It's understand the brand, take time to really work with them and understand what their wants and needs are. Then we go through the application process. And that can take anything from 2 weeks to 8 weeks. It depends how much work we need to do through that compliance process, but it is very much a hand-holding process internally. So we have half a dozen people across franchise support and standards that will help through that journey, making sure that they know if they're changing things, why, And then they come out the other end of it as a BFA member. We celebrate them on social media, and then we have engagement meetings with them to make sure, certainly in their first year or two, they're really engaging and getting introduced into the community. Because, you know, like Craig said there, the community feel that the association has is brilliant. But when you first come into it, you're like, oh my God, who do I talk to? So, you know, we want to make sure they're kind of loved and nurtured into and introduced to some of the key brands. We have board buddying processes. So if it's a new brand and they want a buddy, we tend to marry them up with one of our board directors who will work with them and introduce them around in the sector as well.
Oh, fantastic. And it's nice for people to understand what that journey looks like, you know, because it can be a nerve-wracking thing when you want to start to try and join an organization, and you perhaps worry if you've got all your ducks in line. But it seems like a very supportive process and very nurturing for people who want to join. So that's fantastic. A question I had, actually, and we'll move on. We've got a few questions that have come in from the audience, but a question I had is, what is the mindset of yourself, of the CEO of the BFA? What's your sort of way of dealing with things? And
hide in a corner and rock. No, really positive. You know, for me, getting to grips with the role right at the beginning as the CEO, I found really tough. It was the transition that anyone has to make from management to leadership, I think, is a hard one. But I have to say, being in this sector made it so much easier. You know, the support of the board and, you know, established members. Some of these people I've known for 25 years, and they were incredibly supportive of that journey for me. But I think, you know, we rebranded at the beginning of last year, and it was probably one of the biggest statements that we made, because we went on this journey internally as a team that was by myself and my COO, in terms of saying, look, what do we want this association to look like? How do we make it more inclusive? We dragged it kicking and screaming into a more modern century of working. You know, we didn't have social media back in the day. So there was a lot that we needed to do to get into the right era quickly. So we did a lot of that. And then when we sort of sat back and looked at it, our brand on the outside didn't reflect who we were on the inside. So we spent some time with a branding company, and the values and behaviors of the association that we put out are very much the values and behaviors of who we are internally at the BFA as people. It's around growth, innovation, positivity, diversity and inclusion. By far my favorite one of our values is passion. You talk to anyone in this sector, they will say the key thing they look for in their franchisees or their staff is the passion for their brand and their service. Our behaviors around offering help, never stop learning, a can-do attitude, but most importantly, wear your heart on your sleeve and celebrate individuality, because everyone is unique. Everyone needs to be their authentic selves, and the authentic version of them is the one that people will buy into. And I think that's just really important. For me, that was one of the hardest transitions to make. And you have this vision of what everyone thinks the BFA CEO should look like. So for me, in the end, swallowing it and going, I just need to be who I am, was a tough decision, but one I think that the industry have embraced, and so have I.
Oh, that's lovely. I love the fact that your favorite one is passion. I think passion is such a great driver of things. And, you know, I often speak to people and try and find out what their dream is, you know, how they see their day to day, what their passion is. You know, if you can really find out what someone's passion is, whether that's a team member, a franchisee, a franchisor, if you can find that out and you can nurture that, and it really sounds like you do. And, you know, values, if they're true values, and like you said there, that they're the values of the people within the organization. And you'll be able to see it. I've certainly seen it. I've met many people from the BFA, and I've seen those values instilled. You know, there's a lot of fun. You know, people are very positive and very passionate. So I think that's fantastic. Let's have a quick look at a few comments. What's Tim got to say here? So, bringing franchisees into the BFA fold is a genius move. Most franchisees only have exposure to franchising through the brand they are invested in. Through the BFA, networking with other brand franchises enables them to see opportunities for growth.
100%.
Absolutely. It allows them to see things from different perspectives. You spoke a little there about diversity, and diversity is fantastic to see things from other people's perspectives. If 10 people have the same experience, they tell 10 different stories.
Yeah. And, for us with franchisees, we got it wrong originally. I'm not going to lie. In 2012, we launched a program to recruit franchisees, and it failed miserably. There was a package of benefits. I used them. I don't think anybody else did. And when we sat in the pandemic, it's one of the things that Emily and I spoke about internally and said, we want to drive franchisee membership. What's the goal? And the goal is representation. If you're involved in franchising, you should be a part of this association. It's about all of us standing in the same place, singing from the same hymn sheet and talking about how great franchising is. So for us now, refining and spending time going out to franchise conferences with members. So myself, James, who is our head of membership and standards, we go out and we sit and we talk to franchisees. We give a presentation on this is what the BFA is. This is what the industry is about. But then we ask them, we spent a year asking them, what do you want from the BFA? And it fell into us 4 key areas: collaboration, education, networking, and trade. So collaboration from our perspective is we have franchisee champions from different franchisor brands that get involved with us and work with us on what the benefit package looks like. And they encourage other franchisees within their network to become BFA members too. From an educational perspective, we already have the flagships that franchisees can access. But what we've now created is monthly Monday masterclasses that work for anyone in business, whether you're a franchisor or a franchisee. We've got monthly programs that are delivered by our advisor and supplier members, talking about common business issues. How do I do social media, sales, marketing, HR issues? And that's really worked for us. We then put together the franchisee forum. So I said we had our first one just a few months ago, which was getting franchisees together to talk about common challenges and issues that they had. And we had some hot topics. We've started featuring them in the BFA magazine. But the final thing, and I think the most important one, is trade. Why would anyone buy from outside of franchising if they can buy from within it? These people are local business people. Yes, they have a national organization behind them. But when we did a campaign that was all about shop local, it identified the brands that were there. So we're trying to put platforms in place through a Facebook hub and through the BFA hub, member hub that franchisees get to get them in touch with each other so that they can use each other's services. They can cross promote. So that's what we see as the kind of real benefit for franchisees.
That's fantastic. We've got a question here from Natalia. Actually, I'm going to put this one up quickly because you need to see this one. You are a credit to franchising and the BFA. My best hire ever. That's from Simon.
And I was cheap back then, Simon.
Let's have a little look. So Natalia's put, can franchisees be members if a franchisor is not a BFA member? And if not, why not? That's a good question.
No, they can't. So we don't accredit franchisees. They can sign up if their franchisor has done it. So it's both a benefit for the franchisor and the franchisee. So it's absolutely free for a franchisee of a BFA member to join. But we don't have franchisees outside of BFA membership because for us, it's that standards piece. That sits at the heart of every single thing that we do is the standard. And we needed that standards based. This brand has been accredited, therefore we're prepared to represent and give that franchisee a badge to, because we believe that our franchisors are doing the right thing and that they work ethically with the franchisees.
Absolutely. No, that's a fantastic answer to that. Let's have a look. I mean, so many great questions coming in here. I always appreciate, we talked about community, but this is a wonderful community full of people that make my job doing this very easy. I just have to sit here wearing a silly hat, read them. Yeah. It's fantastic. Let's have a little look. It's Sanjay, and I know he couldn't join at the beginning, so welcome to you, Sanjay. He's put, welcome Pip. It would be great to hear Pip's view on And I think we dealt with this. So check out the beginning part for the first part of your question, Sanjay. Let's have a look at the second part of this question, Pip. Where the future lies with Gen Z, I'm not going to say Z, Gen Z franchisees, as it's very difficult to see the younger generations entering franchising. Pip and I were talking about this before we went on air. We're both passionate advocates of young people entering the franchising space. What's your thoughts?
Yes, Sanjay, I completely agree with you. From a BFA perspective, I get on a hobby horse every now and then. It was empowering women in business, and we've now got a really established event for that. The next thing is all about the education of the next generation. So we've been working really closely on a future partnership with a leading university. We want to get franchising on the agenda of business schools and universities, so they know what it is. We will use the power of the collective ambition of franchising to help support that. So we're going to have to eventually create tools where anyone that's passionate about franchising can go to a local business school or university and talk about franchising. But for us, we're talking about MBA programs, accreditation for our qualified franchise professional, to start doing some of that. We do a bit in relation to the awards program. So for years, we've had a next gen category in the awards, because for me, the key thing here is being able to say, look, here are some success stories of people that have come through franchising. But most of them, if I'm honest, we're seeing they found it as a job. They get a passion for the brand that they then fall in love with, and they work through a process to become a franchisee. Because one of the hardest things, I think, is access to funding when you're so young. But we did, during Diversity, Equity and Inclusion Week with McDonald's sponsored it. There was a great McDonald's franchisee there, and I think he bought in really early. He was about 23. But, this is, for us, how we can make it more accessible. We're at the start of our journey, but it's absolutely a growth area for me, and one that we want to focus on as an association, because those numbers aren't growing. It's less than, I think, 10% of UK franchisees are under the age of 30. But I think that's the education of them. If I always laugh and say, if I'd have known when I was younger that if I spent less money on booze and fags and put some of my pocket money aside, I might have been able to buy a franchise and be my own business owner. But I think that's the thing, this is, how do we make sure that the next gen know about it? And the next generation, the only way they're going to find out about it is if we all talk about it. I don't walk down the street with my mates and I'm walking down the road and it's a franchise. And they're like, oh my God, you're so annoying. But, it highlights the fact that, people don't always know what brands are franchised. And we've all got a job to do in that, in saying, hey, this is what it is. The collective spend at exhibitions is a great way of promoting franchising. We're aligned with Venture on the shows really well. We've started doing internal digital marketing campaigns where brands get on board, and we're doing billboard advertising to, alleviate myths and facts in franchising. We've got another one coming up about franchising stories. We did a free campaign in the children's activity sector just a few weeks ago to support Children's Activity Week and really showcase that, there are so many different brands that you wouldn't think of in franchising. So for us, we're on the journey, but everyone needs to shout about what a great sector we're in.
Definitely.
Blinded.
Yeah, a bus just drove past and reflected the sun into my little office here, just blinded me.
So you need to pull your hat down.
Yeah, that's it. You can see it's live, you see. We don't edit that sort of thing out. It's all part of the fun. No, that's fantastic. And I think it's really important. I'm interviewing a person who's studying franchising in America at the Titus Academy. So it'd be fantastic to hear a 18-year-old's view on franchising, and I hope it's something that comes over here as well. I had there's so many questions. I could talk to you for hours, Pip. It's been such a lovely conversation.
Like we need a part two.
we do need a part two. We do need a part two. We'll definitely do that. I had a couple of questions. The first question is, over that career you've had within the BFA and all of these, you've witnessed lots of changes and lots of life-changing stories, and I'm sure met lots of characters. Are there any particular stories of membership that's kind of changed someone's outlook or changed someone's life, or a character you've met that's particularly stick out?
Oh gosh. For me, I think, we see lots of great stories through the awards programs. It's one of my favorite things to do every year. And the stuff that we see from a franchisee perspective is real stories sometimes of adversity, and the way that franchising has pulled somebody out of this really negative, horrible place in their life and given them like a different level of hope. Those stories, I mean, one, they're heart-wrenching. It's like being on the X Factor when you're sitting reading them. But for me, the reason that franchising is something that sits so close to me and cut me open and I bleed it is because it changes people's lives. It really does transform somebody, from like I said, a really negative place into a really positive place. We've seen franchisors on their journey that I spent time recruiting 15, 20 years ago, and they're now an established member of the BFA. They're entering awards programs. It's a real proud moment to see how brands have grown. There's been too many people to mention in franchising. Farah is one of my biggest fans, and vice versa. The people that looked after me, when I came into the sector, I was 19. It was predominantly male. I was a little bit, oh my God, rabbit in headlights. I'm from Devon. When I had to go to London for my first meeting, I was just, the tube was an enemy agent. But, I think, there were people that, kind of held your hand, welcomed you in to the family and looked after you. And that's what I want the BFA to do for people. The principal reason that we exist is to help people. Every single member of my team, whether it's, from a general assistant through to the senior leadership team, we all have a passion for brand franchising and brand BFA. And ultimately, in each of our own individual ways, want to help people. We spent some time, we had a face-to-face team meeting yesterday, and we spoke about, what's the product or service or thing that we do that you're most passionate about. And hands down, in a different way, they all said the same thing. And it's the same thing that sits at our heart. We want to help people be a little bit better than they were yesterday, because we have access to switch people out, to give them the right advice, to send them on a course that might change the way that they look at things within their business and improve it for the better. No one comes to the stuff that we do and doesn't say, I walked away with a pearl of wisdom or a golden nugget or something that will help improve the way that they do things. And that's what makes me really happy. But yeah, too many people for me to single out every single one of them, because there are a lot in 25 years. But franchising and the people in it rock my world. I love them.
Oh, that's lovely. Yeah, no, I agree, and I think that's wonderful. We've got so many more things we could talk about. I think we are going to have to do a part 2. I don't like to keep people more than about 50 minutes of their wonderful time. So we are going to move on to chapter 3. And chapter 3 is all about the future and what's coming up for the BFA. In case you have just joined us, we are concluding our wonderful conversation with Pip Wilkins of the BFA, and it's been a fascinating and wonderful conversation. So please catch the replay on this episode if you've just joined us. So, Pip, what sort of things are coming up in the future for the BFA? Are there some interesting initiatives coming up?
Yeah, I think the key one is, like I said, the partnership with the university. We're putting together a pilot program, and it's something that Emily Price has been working really, really closely on with Roehampton. So it gives us hopefully a qualification for a formal qualification recognition for our existing qualified franchise professional. But it's all about how we can educate and get people into jobs in franchising longer term. There's lots of developments coming from an academy perspective. So we did a member survey fairly recently. We've had the results in, and that really for us is a perfect time. We do it this time most years because our budget and planning phase is now for the year ahead. So we're starting to look at key themes and where we want to do more. establishing the website as the kind of key hub is our principal goal. And we want to make sure that anyone that is interested in franchising, is in franchising, wants to be in franchising, is driven to that place. So it's a hub of education that really showcases who our members are, whether that's a franchisor, an advisor, or a supplier. But we did a 5-year plan at the conference. You know, for us, it's about growth, it's about innovation, and most importantly, developing our standards and supporting our members in the right way.
Oh, that's a great way to end. We have a lovely QR code that has magically appeared on the screen here. Please scan that if you're watching this now or in the future. That's going to take you straight to the BFA's website, where you can find out more about what they do. I've got one final question, and I wasn't going to do it, but I'm going to do it. You've got to tell us about The Apprentice. I'm a big fan. And what was it like being on that show? We were talking here about younger people starting out in business, and you know, a great platform when people come up with those ideas to expand it through franchising. But tell us a bit about that experience, just for me.
Yeah, I think it's truly brilliant, because either one of the finalists this year absolutely could have franchised, and it was the same in the previous time I did it. So it's my second time, just in case you didn't catch me the first time. But yeah, both completely totally different experiences. The first one was, we were still kind of coming out the back of the pandemic, so it was really kind of social distanced, and there was only 8 experts and no real audience there other than us to kind of talk to the different finalists. And Harpreet from Oh So Young went on to win, and we've done loads with her since. You know, she's done a podcast with us, she did a fireside chat at Empowering Women in Business. You know, she's been brilliant, and is still kind of on and considering her franchise journey. This time around was a bit different, because massive room, loads of different people. But again, you know, there was a lot of franchise brands within the room that have been bought in, because, you know, there's a lot of fitness franchises. So it's a nice place to be. So for me, he actually isn't as mean as he looks on the telly. He's a nice guy. And we've got some great relationships. You know, Tim Campbell's come and spoke at the conference a couple of years ago. We've had Karen Brady before, but really welcoming and really lovely to be called back. I think I tick their diversity and inclusion boxes, which is nice. But yeah, from our perspective, just to know that these people know that franchising is a thing and they're considering it and asking for franchising experts to come in. Hopefully, you know, we'll get to go again.
I was super excited when I saw you on the telly. I went, look, there's Pip. No, it's fantastic. And I think you're absolutely right. It's great that franchising is appearing in the public domain in these different ways, because it's making people aware of what it is, and then they start to investigate it. And you know, that's all going to be good stuff. We have come to the end now. I squeezed in that question. It was just for me, really.
I just have to. I'm going to squeeze something in. We're launching our national survey results, so hopefully we'll be able to get some more national pickups for franchising. So we want to aim at business press. We want to aim at radio. When we've got the new statistics, we'll be working with franchisors and advisors for key commentary that we can put out there. The bit that we do isn't so sexy. It's numbers and stats, but the numbers and stats backed up with franchisor stories is absolutely where we're going to go.
Fantastic. No, that's great. There's nothing like a story, eh?
100%. Brand stories and all that.
That's it. Well, look, I'd like to say a huge thank you to you, Pip, for your time today. It's been a real pleasure talking to you. I do hope we can do a round 2 and talk about the QFP and lots of other elements of the BFA and franchising. It's just been a real pleasure. So thank you so much for your time. And thank you again to everyone who has been here today. This show is what it is because of the community that we're in and the people in franchising. You know, we all lift each other up and nurture one another. So a huge thank you to you all for your comments and for taking the time to be with us today. Just a couple of notes before we finish. Next week on the franchise show, so that's Tuesday 28th of May, we are discussing franchising in Latin America with Guillermo Quintana. Now, we don't normally do this, but I'm going to name drop the show afterwards because it's an exciting one. So on Tuesday, the 4th of June, the franchise show is coming live from the Sky Studios in Elstree. and we will be discussing franchise TV advertising with the wonderful Kurt Edwards from Sky AdSmart. So I am super excited about going there with my son. We're going to have a little tour, so it's all very exciting. So please join us on Tuesday, the 4th of June as well. And please join us next week for Franchising Brand Stories, where we will be finding out what's under the hat of another fantastic brand. So until next week, take care and have a lovely week ahead. Cheerio.
Thanks, Harvey. Bye.